Hi all. I witnessed live a very interesting game today on chessgames.com, and a women grandmaster, Pogonina, was also she was commenting on the game and gave great insight to what was going on. So the game was between Magnus Carlsen against Be2 Qg6 in the Pole Spring Chess Tournament, which has just started. A very strong tournament in China, some of the best players in the world. So Carlsen is being coached at the moment by Garry Kasparov, and he's never played this opening before. Not E4, he has played that before, but the Scotch game. So Nxc6. So what is the Scotch game? You know, Scotch eggs, you might be thinking. Well, the Scotch game is an immediate d4 here, and I just don't understand the position much. I haven't really played this myself much. But I know a lot. You know, when I play on the black side, a lot of people do play this, like on the ICC and other places. It's an exciting alternative, perhaps, to just playing Bishop C4 or Bishop B5. So it seems quite a logical move, just immediately attacking, you know, Black's E5 pawn. Why not? Well, one problem though is after E takes D4, if you recapture the knight, which Carlsen did, Bishop C5 seems to win a tempo. And there's a variation, knight takes c6, where black, you know, avoids d takes c6 and just plays queen f6. So attacking f2 and then recaptures the knight. And I didn't think that was, you know, that great, but you know, maybe it's okay. But in fact, so Be2 Qg6 in this position, well, sorry, after bishop c5. Not Be2 Qg6. Carlsen didn't play knight c6. He played bishop e3, and you know, maybe this is a great way of playing it instead of that knight c6. So queen f6 was played, still striking at d4, and it forces what you know, visually seems like a kind of timid move, just c3, just supporting the knight on d4, but it does the job. The only job it doesn't do, the knight is not on c3, so you know, is white challenging the d5 square? So when black now plays knight ge7, you know, is black going to play d5 with potentially, well, as well as challenging the e4 pawn, you know, potentially getting a grip and pressure on these squares as well. If e4 is knocked out, then, you know, this bishop or knight can come to f5 later maybe. So does white have a small advantage though? Well, I think, well, white tries to keep control of d5 by now playing bishop c4. Now this comes at a little price as well, that the bishop can be attacked, and Leko attacks it. So many fights going on about control of squares and, you know, the quirkiness of white's setup, that there isn't a knight on c3, so is d5 possible? Well, to stop that, bishop c4, but then that's a bit quirky because of knight e5. So the bishop goes back here, and what's the problem with this now? Well, the problem with it is, you know, white really doesn't want to have to play f3, so black plays queen g6. In fact, f3 would be a disaster here because of queen takes g2. In fact, so this is a double attack, and you have to be prepared to sack the e4 pawn. Nothing else is that good. If you play bishop f3, now d5, according to Ripple, and this is like equalising, because now e takes, there might be knight, I don't know, maybe knight d3 check is good. Or apparently not, king f1. But no, actually better is knight takes f3, queen takes, and now bishop g4. And this apparently is better for black, this position, because in this variation, knight takes d5 as an example. You know, black's got very active pieces and no problems. And look at this passive pawn structure. So let's go back to the game. Carlsen castled. So is this all with the help of Garry Kasparov, his coach? So he's sacking e4. e4 is not taken at the moment. If e4 is taken here, then knight b5 apparently. So that's hitting c7, and that's a bit awkward for black to defend. If bishop b6, then bishop takes b6 and knight c7. Black doesn't really want to play king d8. So that's awkward to defend that. If queen c6, just bishop takes c5 apparently, and in this position, to try and get a decoy on this sensitive c7 square, queen d4, and black's in serious trouble here, because after takes the knight is in pre as well as c7. So let's just see this. So here, if a counter attack, there's knight d6 check. If a6, there's knight takes c7, I guess. And here just knight takes rook. So basically, you know, black can't take on e4. That would be a nasty trap. So black plays d6. And now Carlsen really does sack the e4 pawn. A positional pawn sack. Amazing. So this must be preparation. And it makes maybe the whole opening, in my view, worth considering as an alternative to the Ruy Lopez or the Gokko piano. Well, if black played the Gokko piano. So bishop f2. So is white just a pawn down for nothing? Well, after bishop takes d4, c takes d4, look at that poor pawn on c3 has been liberated to being in the centre. And not only that, white's going to play d5 soon. After g3 reinforcing f4, now knight c3 gaining a tempo, and now look, d5. And it starts to look, you know, look at these bishops, amazing. Look at the space that white has and the potential use of d4 to further harass the queen later if a knight can go there. And look at this c file, so c7 is also a potential problem. And look at how Carlsen now just intensifies the pressure. So rook c1, bishop f3. So for the pawn, white's got loads more space and is going to start pressurising this queen side soon. And if something like queen b3, rook b8, there's bishop a7 even, you know, to forcibly win b7. So things are going to start dropping off on the queen side soon. How does black defend this? Well, what he played here was b5. But now knight e2, a powerful centralisation using that d4 square. It's something I'd managed to sort of predict actually in commentary, and no, I wasn't with Ribka turned on. I found this manoeuvre myself, but I had thought bishop d3 instead of bishop f3 initially. But bishop f3 was so much stronger because it stops all, you know, black's tricks of queen h3 and bishop g4. So the bishop's still eyeing d5, trying to discourage c5 or c6. It's doing a lot of jobs on f3, both on the king side and the queen side and in the centre. So queen h3, and now this powerful knight d4. So some fantastic compensation for being a pawn down. Bishop g2, queen h5. No easy pawn breaks for black. How does black get black pawn break? Can't even arrange g5 here. So white squashes black's counterplay on the king side and sort of encourages, you know, an unsound knight sack later by playing h4. I just think black's clearly worse. In the game, this passive move was played, knight g8. And now white is going to really put the pressure on the queen side. Rook c6. And you might think, well, you know, it's only the a pawn. Is it really going to lead to the collapse of the whole black position? It's funny though, you know, sometimes a pawns do lead to, strangely, the collapse of the entire position. I'm not sure quite why. It's one of those magical things in chess that winning the a pawn, well, it is, I suppose, supporting the b pawn. So it's the b pawn that's going to hurt. And if the b pawn goes, maybe the c pawn's under fire. So maybe it does affect the whole position, as if black's position has been put on set alight. If after the knight f6, rook takes a6, so the b5 pawn is under pressure. So that causes the bishop to have to go to a more passive position. But it does vacate g4 for the knight. But now this pawn drops, so that's a pawn sack for a little bit of b-file pressure. But black's hardly ever going to play c6 or c5 because of the en passant, this bishop on lovely fianchetto. So a4. So anyway, black gets in knight g4 as if knight f4 might be a threat, or knight h4, especially after knight f2 though. But Carlsen just pins the knight. So, you know, where is the attack? So queen h6 to unpin. I thought during the live, you know, view of the game, queen f5. And I thought here bishop d4, but apparently I think bishop d4 is too risky. Knight takes h4, f4 might be dangerous. Knight f4, that might be tricky as well actually. And knight h4, these are both tricky moves to consider in all variations. So this shows, you know, it is tricky, but Carlsen, you know, he's squashing the counterplay. If queen f5 was played, he wouldn't have played bishop d4. I think bishop e4 is stronger according to Ribka. Just chase the queen back. Because if queen f6, then bishop d4 with tempo, because the knight's protecting the bishop. Actually, is that possible because of the pin on the knight? Sorry, this is going to be a long commentary. I might have to go into a second video at this rate. Queen f6. No, bishop d4 is possible. Queen d4, knight d4, protecting the rook. What about rook takes b5, just to satisfy my curiosity? In this position, apparently, not bishop f6, black's clearly better, but just the sly queen c3. So here black's in real trouble. If the queen moves ab, just winning in the exchange. There's no useful move for black in this position. Rook c5, just win f6 again. So if rook c3, just bishop c3. So fine. Queen f6 is useless there.